Most people, in order to get a thigh gap, would have to be severely, profoundly underweight on a dangerous level. And actually, it was one of the things when I worked in eating disorder services, you would hear again and again and again about thigh gap.
When it comes to body dysmorphia, there's always been kind of pressure or role models to look a certain way for both men and women. I feel that that's something that's changed radically over the last 10 years in terms of a certain body ideal, right? So you've got Instagram being the primary focus of a lot of influencers looking a certain way, the Love Island generation, all these guys, absolutely no one looked like that when I was 19, 20. All these guys are absolutely stacked. A lot of the girls are having work done, surgeries of one sort or other, procedures. I feel that body dysmorphia is something that maybe could affect more people just because we're being constantly bombarded. You need to look like this. If you don't look like this, you're never going to find a partner. You're never going to be happy. How worried are you by this trend towards this body beautiful? And again, especially with filters and other technological tweaks that mean what you're seeing isn't even reality in the first place.
Yes.
The cause of concern for you, especially again, focusing on young people or maybe in their 20s, who look at themselves in the mirror each morning and go, I'm never going to be happy. Look at me.
Yeah, I mean, I see this again and again. Honestly, I can't even begin to tell you how many conversations I've had with people about this. And actually, I was at a party. I was at a dinner party about 2 years ago, and I was sitting next to someone. Now, this is somebody. She was 16, 17. Her father is someone very well known in the media, etc. They're sensible, financially comfortable people. She went to a really good school. She's really kind of, you would think that she has all the resources at her disposal to be as kind of steady and stable from a mental health point of view as possible. She's got two loving, caring, intelligent parents. And when I mentioned that I worked in an eating disorder clinic, she said, "Oh, can I ask you something?" And I said, "Yeah, sure." So she got out her phone. And again, I'm sort of incredibly ignorant when it comes to these things, even though I've worked in eating disorders and heard about this all the time. And she just scrolled through her Instagram feed, and it was mainly women in bikinis. And she was saying, "Can I ask, is that normal?" And what she pointed to is a thing called a thigh gap. Now, a thigh gap is where at the top of women's legs, typically women's legs, there is a space, basically, where their kind of, vagina would be. And when you wear a kind of bikini, you can see the gap between the thighs. Now, that is actually an abnormal anatomical feature. The vast majority, I mean, like well over 99% of women, anatomically, the muscles just do not sit like that. But yet she was showing me all of these things. So she said, "Look, they've all got it. Is this normal?" And I had to sit there. And I was like, put the phone down. I'm telling you, this poor girl. And again, sort of like intelligent, smart young woman. And I was saying, this is not normal. This is not a normal part of anatomy. And actually, most people, in order to get a thigh gap, would have to be severely, profoundly underweight on a dangerous level. And actually, it was one of the things when I worked in eating disorder services, you would hear again and again and again about thigh gap. And I remember the first time I ever heard this, and I was thinking, I didn't even really know what a thigh gap was. And somebody was explaining it to me, one of my patients. That weekend, I was in Oxford Circus, and there was a billboard for a very well-known shop advertising a bikini. And I sat on, and I mean, it was literally as big as my head. The thigh gap was right in front of me on Oxford Circus. And I thought, how many hundreds of thousands of people are going to walk past this? Now, it wasn't pointing out there was a thigh gap, but I thought this is being presented as a normal anatomical feature, which actually is abnormal. And probably either that's why that woman is a model, because she has unusual anatomical features, or it was actually never existed and it was put in by some, advertising, photoshopper later on. And yet this is being presented again and again. And this was in just in a high street. And I thought, my goodness. And that, you walk past that for 5 seconds and it imprints into your mind. But imagine that being on social media again and again. So absolutely, it's having a really profound impact. And again, I'm very annoyed with things like Love Island, I have to say. I've written a lot very critically of Love Island and the way it is pushing not only a relatively vacuous representation of what it means to have relationships, to be alive in the world, etc., but also the hugely unrealistic body ideals that it insidiously puts forward as being normal. When you're watching it day in and day out every evening, and you see whatever, a dozen people, and they all look in a very particular way, of course, you're going to assume, well, that's what 19, 20, 21-year-olds look like, even though it's absolutely not.
So what do we do? I mean, there's
Well,
the realistic, what is actually plausible, and then there's your magic wand. If you could wave it, what regulation, what other things would happen? Can we talk quickly about where you think the best hope is, whether or not that's involvement from, regulation, social media platforms doing something, to your dream scenario of how we deal with this? Because as you've said, we've got a whole generation of young people being exposed to an ideal that doesn't exist. The impact that has, we've talked about ADHD, other mental disorders, the potential risk if this is left unchecked is severe, right? So what do we do?
Well, I think in an ideal world, we just ban photoshopping and we ban filters. Easy. There we go. And actually, I think everyone would be like, my God, wow, is that really what people look like? And be sort of really quite horrified, because I think we're so used to it all the time. And although that sounds ludicrous, actually, the mayor banned certain images on the tube. So, I mean, it can happen. I mean, with that, I found I had an issue with that, more because I thought, but yet you can still have men with their tops off. So you've got women, there's certain representations of women are not allowed, but yet actually it's just as insidious for men as well, if not more so, arguably. It kind of annoyed me, but that at least showed that sometimes people can just come in and go, do you know, we're just not doing it anymore, we're just not having it. And I think that definitely, that would be if I had a magic wand, that's what I would do. I mean, I want to say that pragmatically, I think it would have to be about educating youngsters around the reality of all this. I think, though, that doesn't really allow for the kind of, reptilian bit of our brain that is beyond reason and kind of rationality. And it even happens to me. I'm actually not on Instagram, not on social media particularly, but whenever I sort of do look through people's social media profiles, and I sit there and think, and I sit there knowing everything I know, sit there and think, oh God, like maybe I need to go to the gym a bit more. I need to do more crunches. I need to do this. It's completely ridiculous, and I know it's all. And also, some of them are my friends, and I know it's a fiction. I've seen them with their tops off. I've been on holiday with them. They don't look like that. I know it's a filter.